All right, guys, quick one today, hopefully. I wanted to get some thoughts out about the Canon R5 Mark II while it's still fresh. So I've been watching a lot of the early videos about the Canon R5 Mark II, and I just wanted to give my thoughts. I feel like a lot of the reviews are getting bogged down in the weeds of the specs, focusing on things like AI, autofocus algorithms, and everything that the spec sheet can tell them. And I think it's actually much simpler than that. And to tell this story, I need to go back in time and talk about the 5D Mark II. Now, the 5D Mark II was a revolutionary camera. I mean, a lot of Hollywood productions actually use that to film movies and TV shows. I remember House. I was watching a show called House back in the day, and they made a big deal because the entire episode was shot on the 5D Mark II. The reason why the 5D Mark II was such a big deal is because it really put us on the path of hybrid cameras. It created the market of hybrid cameras. And so when the mirrorless revolution started, it was notable that while Sony took the lead and started putting out these impressive mirrorless products, Canon most notably sat on the sidelines. And they showed up late to the party. And when they did show up, their products were missing a lot of features. There have been 5 specific limitations that the Canon mirrorless cameras have had that have prevented me from buying. And when I read this list now, it kind of makes me laugh because they sound silly right now. 4K crop. The EOS R had a 1.7 4K crop. Recording time limit. It wasn't until like a year ago that Canon mirrorless cameras didn't have a 30-minute record limit. Overheating in 4K and other high resolution modes. Lack of dynamic range, specifically by not including the most flexible log profile, C-Log2. And then finally, the most infuriating limitation is the lack of a full-size HDMI port. The reason why it's the most infuriating on this list is because it's the most obvious that it was an intentional limitation. Over time, the price of the R5 has come down enough where I think it's a really compelling camera. You can get one for around $2,000. Definitely $2,500, but I've seen some that go for $2,000. But whenever I think about pulling the trigger on an R5, I remember that it has a micro HDMI cable port. And then I looked at the R6 Mark II. Again, micro HDMI port. And then this is the worst. The R5C, which is supposed to be the Canon cinema camera. It's supposed to be a mini cinema camera, but it has a micro HDMI port. Like, what a joke. This is coming from the camera that created the 5D Mark II. It just has rubbed me the wrong way for years. And it's the reason why I've never bought a Canon mirrorless camera. Even though I love Canon lenses, I love Canon color science. I've tried everything under the sun. Sony, Panasonic, Nikon, Fuji. I've tried everything. I've bought mirrorless cameras from every manufacturer except for Canon. I think in a lot of ways I feel like buying a Canon camera would feel like coming home because I learned how to shoot on a Canon 60D. That was my first camera. And then at work for over a year and a half, I shot everything on a 5D Mark III and a Canon C100. I think buying a Canon mirrorless camera would feel like coming home. So back to the question in the title of this video. Is the Canon R5 Mark II a big deal? I think it is. I think it's a very big deal. And I think it's a big deal because the limitations that Canon has artificially put on their cameras to this point, they finally crossed every one of them off. So here's the next logical question. Will I be pre-ordering the Canon R5 Mark II? No, I won't. Because 2 things. I have a Nikon Z8 that I got for $2,800, and the R5 II is going to come in after tax and everything for around $5,000. And secondly, it goes against one of my cardinal rules of camera buying, which is do not pay the tax and depreciation. Let someone else pay for that. But does it open the door for me to buy a Canon mirrorless camera in the future? Yes, the door is wide open. I'll probably be coming home at some point. All right, have a good one, guys. I'll see you in the next one.